So this is Grant Cardone. He's a master marketer, international speaker, entrepreneur. You can see a picture of him right here with his jet. And this is me, Kevin, right? He's a YouTuber, wears ugly sweaters, and also two in front of his jet. And the question I have for you guys is, do you want Grant Cardone or me, Kevin, to be your landlord? And in fact, this question comes up because I made a video just yesterday regarding affordable housing, and I've had some discussions with people in the comments regarding, my thoughts on housing and getting your thoughts on housing as well. And you guys probably know houses are really expensive. One of the issues that's happening right now is that essentially Wall Street is buying up homes. Now, there's some details regarding this. I have my opinions on what I think should be done, and I want to get your opinion as well. So let's just jump right in. Wall Street landlords who stockpiled 110 billion are lying in wait for the biggest American home buying spree yet. Here's another one. Wall Street is snapping up family homes. The opportunity is unprecedented, but comes with risks. And another one. Wall Street has purchased hundreds of thousands of single-family homes since the Great Recession. Here's what that means for rental prices. And there's a couple key numbers that I want to show you. Now, it depends who you ask, so these numbers are just sort of projections and estimates. But people who are essentially supporting Wall Street, right, industry advocates, they say they do not control enough market share. And in fact, they're saying that large institutions own 5% of the single-family rentals nationally, and that's of 2022, right? So again, these are sort of estimates and projections. No one knows for sure. By 2030, however, this is according to MetLife Investment Management, they're saying institutions may hold some 7.6 million homes or 40% of all single-family rentals on the market. And regardless of, which numbers are correct, I'm just telling you guys, Wall Street is buying up single-family homes. Like I said, I don't know the exact number. I'm just giving you a couple of different projections. It could be 5% that they have now. Maybe in the future they'll own, roughly 40% of the market. And, if you take a look at someone like a Grant Cardone, so you'll see why I mentioned this stuff in a second, is he'll be saying, okay, this is sort of the trend. The trend is that, institutions and companies are going to be buying up these things and renting them out to people. And why not just jump on the trend, right? So Grant Cardone would say, why America is becoming a nation of renters. And it's kind of funny because he's kind of putting it in a positive point of view. My particular point of view is when we're talking about home ownership, this is one of the ways that you build wealth. This is also one of the ways that you build wealth for your family, and you just sort of pass on this, real estate, essentially wealth from generation to generation. And it's interesting how someone like a Grant Cardone is more celebrating on, hey, we're going to become a nation of renters. And it's interesting. Well, this is Grant Cardone's language. Let's take a look for together here. Is it unethical to rent to others, right? And this is what he would say is Grant Cardone. Some people read this article and say, whoa, America's becoming a nation of renters. That's not fair. So that would be me. Full disclosure. The game is never fair, guys. Remember, it's the spectators who criticize from the sidelines, but the players are the ones who get paid. So that would be Grant Cardone's philosophy. If the world is going to, we're going to be a nation of renters, might as well take advantage of it and let's get paid. So I just want you guys to kind of think about, is Grant Cardone the kind of landlord that you would want? And so this is more Grant Cardone. Let's just see what he says. So learn how to play the game. That said, you need to have a strong set of morals and ethics in the real estate game. If you're driven by this renters nation shift out of pure greed, you're never going to get far. And it's kind of funny, Grant Cardone talking about morals and ethics. He's basically a scammer kind of person. You guys know how I feel about these sort of things. But I just wanted to use his words, and you guys can decide for yourself. Also, too, he says, this is Grant Cardone, remember this, you have an ethical obligation to take care of your family, your fellow investors, your tenants, and your property management team. If you go over to take a look at, moreover, again, this is Grant Cardone, and I want you just to understand, this is a very simple logic. If you have people that are coming in to buy homes, they tend to want to make a profit. I don't think there's anything crazy. And this sort of colors everything that they do. Now, he's going to say, no, we're, doing great things and stuff like that. But I'm just saying profits come first for these kind of people. He's saying, Grant Cardone, he's tweeting out, if I have to pay for it, I rent it. If someone else will pay for it, I own it. So, and then he says here, this is a hashtag, rent where you live, own what you can rent. It's really funny. This is me, Kevin, and he's doing a similar kind of thing. So essentially, he wants to be Grant Cardone. And he's saying, I'm introducing a new real estate company, right? You guys can get this here. And you guys already know I don't like this guy, but I just want to show you, his actual language so you can see I'm not just making random stuff up. One thing that Kevin is basically trying to convince you of is that he wants to be like American Homes or Invitation Homes. Essentially, what we're talking about here, and this colors the whole discussion, is essentially, do we want more institutions to own more property and hence become, USA become a nation of renters? Is that something that we want? And do we want more landlords like a Grant Cardone or me, Kevin? That's the question I'm posing to you. And it's interesting the way Kevin structures his argument here, and just listen to it here. So Kevin's saying here, Straywood Waypoint filed eviction notices for more than 30% of tenants, while Invitation Homes filed notices of nearly 15%, right? This is according to Reuters, he says. And in contrast, Kevin Pathrath has never had an eviction. And so the basic gist is that Kevin's trying to make the case that he can, do a much better job with evictions than either the big, Wall Street firm kind of things, right? That's what the case that he's making. I would dispute that. I would say I don't think so. I think you're probably going to be the same. But Kevin's going to try to make the case that he is better. Also, too, he's saying here, I want you to see his own words. He's saying, we believe there's an open opportunity to gain market share with a superior deal-making, deal financing, renovation management experience, leveraging AI, software, short-term rentals, medium-term rentals. We have massive potential. So pay attention to the language, short-term rentals and medium rentals. And again, the question is, guys, do we want institutions/companies to be buying up more homes and turning USA into a nation of renters? That's a philosophical question I'm asking you. Also, too, literally, he lays out the plan of how these companies work. This is sort of the plan, right? You can essentially buy homes, buy low, sell high kind of thing, right? But buy them where you feel like they're undervalued. You're going to renovate them in the uniform, right? And this is his own language. Outfit them with the Meet Kevin uniform that has been shown to increase rental returns. This is the systematic approach we'll use to renovate and increase rental values at scale. So the basic idea is that you want to do cookie cutter renovations as quick as you can, as cheap as you can, to maximize profits. And this has been kind of a complaint of many people who say rent from big institutions, that oftentimes these properties aren't well managed because they're not really that interested in having a good property for you. They're interested in making profits, right? If I say anything crazy, please let me know. But this is essentially the business model of these kind of people, like a Meet Kevin, like a Grant Cardone, these kind of things, right? So you could argue, slumlord management, that's more of an opinion, but I was saying you could argue that if you want to take that opinion. And they're going to rent them out, refinance, and this also, too, we're talking about managing debt, et cetera. So essentially why I'm bringing this up is because when you bring in institutions that are going to be buying up those things, homes, and if it ends up being 40% of the market, right, it creates a very, very different landscape. And if we do indeed become a nation of renters, I'm telling you guys, it makes it difficult for many people to build wealth. The other thing, too, which I want to bring up as well is, how can we control this kind of stuff? Because this is sort of where the discussions on the video that I made, and they said, we need to regulate these kind of people. We need to regulate people like a Grant Cardone or, like a Blackstone, for example, or like a Meet Kevin. And I understand, guys, I really understand. So these kind of people, these real estate people, really, really hate people like me because I don't really like their business practices. I myself don't want the USA to become a nation of renters. That's just my opinion. Now, I can understand if you have a different opinion, but I'll give you an example. So some regulations you can do, like here is something that is always talked about in many, many cities right now. This is a major political issue, is what about Airbnb? You can see a headline here. Airbnb regulations will make your next New York City trip even more expensive. And so this website is more like, what's it like to travel to, New York? Where can you find deals? And that actually is a legitimate concern. So if you live in Airbnbs, maybe, tourism, you have to go stay in a more expensive hotel. And you could argue that hotel lobbying groups want to get rid of Airbnb, which they totally do. The same way that, say, taxi driver unions want to get rid of Uber, these kind of things. This is not a black and white issue, however, because, you can make the case that, maybe people can do whatever they want with their property. I'm just saying you could make that case, right? And so this is sort of why different cities have to decide what they want to do. Like, look at this one. This is Greensboro, right? It's all over the country. Proposed rules for Airbnb, other short-term rentals advance in Greensboro. One of the things that also happens with this kind of culture of, say, Airbnb culture is many times neighbors will complain. They'll say if you bring in too many Airbnb guests, there'll be way too many parties, too much noise, just too many strangers running in and out of the neighborhood. And that's something that some people don't like. And this is something that I would ask you is, say, in your neighborhood, do you want your neighbors having an Airbnb all the time, right? So maybe in a tourist area, for example, maybe people is like, everyone's doing it, so not a big deal. But in some places, maybe people don't want that. And I'm just posing this question to you guys. Also, too, you can see here, Philadelphia is doing it as well. How Philly's new regulations impact short-term rentals. So this is one of the things that you could do if you want to discourage institutions from buying up homes. Is basically regulate Airbnb more, or just sort of, kick it out altogether. I have a list of a bunch of other things to do, which I want to go over, and just kind of, I have it written down, but I just want to share some of these with you. So other stuff you can do is you can have rent control. Basically, the gist would be if an institution comes up and buys up, homes and slash, apartment complexes, etc. Just for example, you could limit the amount that they can raise the rent. So essentially, this limits their profits. Now, obviously, Wall Street, Grant Cardone and Kevin would hate this. They would say free market, free market, free market. But I want you to understand, just think about this. If institutions say, for example, control 40% of the market, or whatever they're going to control, right? If they control much of the housing market, they can set prices wherever they want. So, yes, guys, I believe in free market. I believe in capitalism. I do. But I also believe that if you, let these things go unchecked, just the way that our system is just the way that it is, big money will come up and, buy up everything, kind of take advantage of the system and then control everything. And it's not really free market anymore. So I believe in a balance between, market, slash visible hand and some regulation. I think regulation does matter. Another thing that you can do as well, if you're talking about how could you regulate these kind of, people, these kind of practices, is like limit the amount of homes that they can own in a particular market. So like, for example, let's say Kevin wants to go in and, buy up all the homes in Santa Barbara, right, in California. And you'd say, well, okay, no single institution kind of person like Kevin / company can own more than, say, 10% of the market or whatever, right? You set it at a rate or / limit that makes sense, right? Does that sound anything unreasonable? And I understand, like, you can make the case that, well, we live in a free country, free market, and if Kevin had the money, he could go in and buy all of Santa Barbara, right? And that's the question I pose to you, because one of the issues that's making it difficult for first-time home buyers is you're competing with cash buyers who are not going to live in said homes. The game is rigged. And I personally think, and if you guys know me, if you follow the channel, I would like to run for office, but it's very, very difficult. I'm sure you understand these things. This takes a lot of capital. And it's kind of funny. It's just like buying a home. It takes a lot of capital. And you're competing against people that are essentially raising money from investors. So like you're competing against corporations and armies of investors, right? And the game is rigged. And you're just a regular person with, one job. You don't have an army of investors behind you. And the question is, which side should we be on? Should we be the inside of like your Wall Street investor people that want to buy up all these homes? Or should we be on the side of, say, just a regular family who wants to buy a single family home? That's a question I'm posing to you. What kind of game do you want? And you can go either way. I'm just sharing you my thoughts. So obviously you kind of know how I feel, but I'm laying it out for you guys to understand. Other things you could be thinking about too. You could be talking about, you could tax these things. So for example, if an institution or a person is not living in the home that they own, you can tax those differently, right? You can essentially raise taxes on those kind of things. So that basically discourages someone from, buying up a whole bunch of, property just to turn them into rentals. And this is basically goes to a philosophical point is, do you believe we should regulate people buying up entire neighborhoods or not? That's essentially what we're talking about here. Other things that you could be thinking about as well is you can also regulate, how easy it is for these companies / Wall Street investment institutions, et cetera, to raise capital, be it through investors, or you can also regulate like how much they can borrow. Like, do we want these companies to over leverage themselves, et cetera? Another thing we could be thinking about doing, there's a lot of things. I'm just sharing with some different thoughts because people say, Chris, how could you change the system? Another thing is you could make it more easy for first-time home buyers to get into homes. You could have more tax incentives for them, right? Be it tax breaks, make, first-time home buyer loans a little bit easier to get, maybe lesser down payment, maybe lower interest, just any number of things. I'm just giving you guys some examples because the basic idea is you're trying to make the game a little bit more fair because, again, you're talking about just regular people competing with Wall Street to buy homes. And I hope you understand, I really believe if you want to build wealth, having a home for yourself and passing on to your kids, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, is really advantageous, and it becomes very, very difficult if you're competing with big institutions. Other things you can be thinking about as well. Yes, I have a whole list. So you can actually make it that these institutions have to be transparent of when they are buying said homes. So like, for example, when we first started, the different numbers of, how much of the market do these Wall Street institutions own? We don't know for sure. And that's something that you would start with is like, should we know for sure, right? And you can force them to give, full transparency of when they're buying, what they're buying, et cetera. Other thing you can be doing as well is focusing on building more affordable housing. This is something that happens in every city, and you can define affordable housing in any number of ways. So I'll just give you guys for an example. When I was in LA, they were voting on basically, can we build tall apartment buildings or not? That's essentially the discussion. And LA has a whole other, bunch of issues like with earthquakes and stuff like that. But in many cities, that is always an issue. Like, what kind of housing can we zone for? Do we want to zone for multifamily housing or not? Some communities do not want that because they'll say, well, that sort of attracts the kind of people that they don't want in their community. And the basic gist of it is this is actually really a serious fundamental problem. If institutions are controlling much of the real estate market, they want to essentially build properties that are more profitable for them, which is totally fine. I get that, right? I'm sure you guys understand. They want to build things that are profitable for them. But oftentimes, like, if you are building properties that maybe are targeting more lower income brackets, maybe not so profitable for them and maybe not so advantageous. So you got to figure out ways, and this is just the reality, like not everyone, can afford to buy $1 million home. Just for example, you have to figure out ways to balance the system to where there are incentives for companies and things like this to build single family housing that is affordable. This has been a real big problem, especially for first time home buyers. There's just not a lot of inventory on the market in that scale. Other things that you could be thinking about is actually, you know what? I covered them all. I'm pretty good. I have this list of stuff, and I was like, I go off the top of my head, but that's it. And there's probably other ones as well. And I should probably ask this question to you: is there any sort of regulations / things that we should change that I left out? But I just want to put this into your perspective / mind. And again, the whole fundamental question is, should we regulate this industry or not? I think it's an important thing to be thinking about because, again, if you want to, create generational wealth for your family, buying a home and owning a home is a great thing. And unfortunately, the way that things are going, because houses are so unaffordable, essentially the USA, and it's not just USA, many countries around the world are becoming nation of renters. So please share your thoughts. And again, question is, do you want Grant Cardone or Meet Kevin to be your landlord? And let's talk about it. So thanks again for your time, and I'll catch you in the next video.